Setting goals and working towards them is the thing that moves you forward in life to become the person you want to be. Some problems that people usually have is that either they set too high goals, like becoming Elon Musk, or they haven't set any goals at all. Another common thing is that New Year comes around, people start reflecting on their life, set a lot of high goals, get a lot of motivation, start working towards it, and then after a couple of weeks, they lose both the interest and the motivation they just got. I have been all those people, but in the last years, I've learned to shift my mindset around goal setting, and because of that, I've managed to achieve some pretty big goals. But the best part is that now that I know how to consistently work towards my goals, I also know that I will be able to achieve my future goals. I will be sharing my best goal setting methods that have worked for me in this video so that you also can start working towards your goals. Okay, so firstly, how to set goals. If you've Googled around for a while, you've probably seen the SMART goals, because it's a very common method to use. That is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. And this is nothing new. You've probably seen this a lot of times before. But I realized when I was writing down all my tips and tricks around goal setting that they all fit into these categories. So I'm gonna use that as a framework for the rest of this section. So let's start with specific and measurable. If you're having a hard time setting specific and measurable goals, like I'm going to climb that mountain or I'm going to save this amount of money, you can try setting OKRs. So OKRs is objective and key results. That way you can set the objective, which is more kind of like a feeling or something you want to achieve that is very much not specific and not measurable. And to that, you can try to connect your key results to that feeling or overarching thought so that you can be a bit more specific. Another thing that you can try here is to both set result goals and habit goals. So result goals are things like, I want to bench press 100 kilos, whereas habit goals are rather, I want to exercise 3 times a week. The thing with result goals is that you cannot directly affect them. You can work towards them, but it's not up to you if they're going to happen or not. Whereas habit goals are things that you can do. You can be consistent in doing it, and that way you can achieve your result goals. And for your goals, try to set a range for what is good, what is great, and what is excellent, because that way you can stretch your goals a bit. So if we're taking the exercise example, if you think 5 times a week, that is great. Well then 7 times a week would be excellent, and 3 times a week would still be good. Exercising 3 times a week, that is good, and if it's an improvement on where you are now, it's moving you forward in life. So that's good. Moving into achievable goals. My biggest recommendation here is to focus on 1 or 2 or maybe 3 goals at a time at most. Because a lot of people have long lists of things they want to achieve and they start working at all of them at the same time and go hardcore into it, and then they don't really complete anything, and then they feel worthless and that they can't do anything because they focus on too many things at the same time. If you only focus on having 1 main goal and maybe 1 to 2 smaller goals, you're much more likely to actually achieve them because you have a smaller focus and can put more of your effort into the same things. Okay, so what about the other goals that you want to complete? Well, pause them. I have a list called the impossible list. I don't remember where I got this concept from, but it's basically a list with all the goals and targets I want to achieve in my life. Like even things that I don't even know if I want to complete, they're also on this list. Because if I have that list, I can always go back to it and choose what kind of goals I want to focus on at the moment and pause the other ones that I can't use. So that is the impossible list, because I can't do them all at once. Maybe not even all in a lifetime. Relevance. Okay, so my tip here might not be groundbreaking, but it's still important. You have to choose a goal that is relevant for you and that inspires you. An error that a lot of people do is that in the beginning of the year they set a really big target, and then a couple of months in, it's not even relevant anymore. Like, just look at this last year with Corona probably ruining a lot of people's dreams and goals. So make sure that your goal is always relevant and that it's a priority in your life. If it isn't, then maybe you should pause it and go for something else. And lastly, time bound. Okay, so I got a really good book recommendation for you for this one. It's a 12-week year by Brian Moran, where he talks about dividing the year into 12-week years instead. So that is, have one quarter kind of be like a year. Because as I said, a lot of people set their goals in the beginning of the year, and then they might even set a lot of goals. Like say they set 4 goals in a year, and then suddenly it's November and they haven't done anything, and then they just start setting new goals. If they instead had set 1 goal for each quarter of the year, they would have a lot more time pressure, because when March rolls around, you will not have a lot of time to complete that first goal. So then you will actually have some actions to do, and you might even be able to complete that goal in just a quarter instead of waiting a whole year. This makes sure that you have the motivation to go on with your goals, because you always keep checking them every quarter. Okay, so the next part is executing on your goals. And the first step here is actually setting a goal. Because if you have set a goal, you're ahead like 90% of the people. I don't have the number, there are studies on this, but most of the people don't even have goals. So if you have set one, you're already ahead and on your way to achieving your goals. Write down your goals. There are a lot of different studies on this topic, and there are numbers ranging anywhere from, if you write down your goals, you're 40% more likely to achieve them, up to that you're 3 times more likely than people who don't write down their goals to actually be achieving your goals. The hardcore version here would be to write down your goals again every day, or maybe once a week. That way you're constantly reminding about what you're focusing on and what your priority is. Divide your goals into super small steps, because if you have a goal that's kind of like, okay, I'm gonna start my own business, that's a huge goal to do in one chunk. So the best thing you could do here is to divide it up in small parts, that each of the parts only takes an hour or a couple of hours to complete. That way you're much more likely to actually start doing and stop procrastinating. Connected to that, it's also good to write down all the little steps and actions you come up with and keep them in one list, but then work from another list. Because that way you can focus on the actions that are here and now, maybe this week's actions that you're going to focus on, and then you have the backlog of actions somewhere else, so that you don't see that huge list of things that you need to get done. You can focus on the things that you can do right here and right now. Make sure that you have a process that reminds you of your goals. So put it in your calendar, set up post-it notes, have it as a wallpaper on your computer, or anything that just keeps reminding you of what your focus is and what your priorities are, so that you're constantly working towards the goal. And the last step is just do. Stop having excuses, stop procrastinating, get to it, focus on the task at hand, know what it is you're supposed to do, and just do it. So one of the best ways of continuously being reminded of your goals is to have a good follow-up process. This will give you knowledge on where you are in the process, and it will keep some pressure on you to always keep improving. If you work from the perspective of having 12-week or quarterly goals, it is quite good to have a weekly follow-up process. That way you're reminded of what you're doing, you're following up on your progress, and it gives you an opportunity to write down your goals again. Do this in any way that suits you best. Pen and paper, have a spreadsheet, whatever floats your boat. When you're following up on your goals, it's also good to reflect on what difficulties do you have and what could you do differently. Also, is this really what you want? Is this the goal you should be working on at the moment? Because if it isn't, you should change. And a last point I would like to make in setting goals, working towards them, and achieving them is that 80% is good enough. And let me give you an example about that. So I arranged an event at Sweden's largest business and politics week, Almedalen. My goal was that my event would be in the top 10 most popular events during the week, and it ended up being on place 15. But let me put that into perspective for you. There are over 4,000 events during this week, so being in the top 15, that is excellent. That's way more than good enough. So I had put place number 10 as a stretch goal, so that's why it is so important to have these good, great, and excellent levels on your goals. Setting and achieving goals is in theory not that hard. It's all about focusing on one thing and just doing. If this video has inspired you to set any goals, please comment down below. I would be really interested in hearing about it and how it's going. If you like this video, please subscribe for more weekly content on business skill, productivity, and personal development. And have a great day!